Welcome back to another episode of No Filter Friday. I am, of course, John Knopic. Thank you guys very, very much for tuning in. And again, I want to send a huge shout out to everybody who's been responding on social media, especially TikTok, which has been an insanely surprising outpouring through that social media channel. Wasn't what I was expecting at all. I was expecting more through like YouTube or, like Facebook, even X. But yeah, TikTok's, I've been seeming to get a lot of traffic on there, not just viewers, but a lot of comments and conversations have been struck up as well, which I very much appreciate because that's what I've been trying to do with this venture here, is trying to get the narrative furthered, get people talking, get conversations going, be as the tagline says, as unfiltered, unbothered, unscripted, unapologetic as I can possibly be. And you guys have really done an amazing job at giving me your feedback and things, and it is insanely appreciated. And I hope this episode will continue to further that conversation and strike even more chords with you guys, regardless if you're listening on YouTube, or I'm sorry, if you're viewing this on YouTube, or listening through traditional social media channels or podcast feeds, such as Apple, Spotify, Yahoo, wow, hello, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and other podcast feeds as well. So to continue to further the conversation, we went from episode 1 was dealing with politics, especially the Trump saga and everything happening over the course of the election cycles and things like that, to last episode, this past Friday, which was all about media narratives and who's actually controlling the narratives and things like that, as far as mainstream media and, how complacent we've become in terms of just accepting everything we hear and see on TV and listen to on the radio and things as gospel, rather than questioning the narrative and seeing if there's a deeper meaning behind what they're trying to push forward. Now, of course, the next logical step in this conversation is going to be looking more at social media and everything from Facebook, where you've got your friends and their posts and you're having your conversations with them regarding their opinions and what they feel the world is shaping up like, and going back and forth with them, to the wild, wild west of Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, to, you've got your social media trends and things on TikTok, on YouTube, and you've got your more investigative journalism and tend to be a little more rabbit hole-y and investigative facts and things over on Reddit and things of that nature. Now, with social media being what it is nowadays, especially, like I said, I'm 45, so I was around when the internet first got started. I was around when AOL and CompuServe were all the rage. And in its infancy, people were amazed what they were able to put up on social media. And it seemed to be a lot more of a friendly neighborhood-like atmosphere, especially from your Facebook standpoint, from MySpace, who can forget Tom, and having people begging for your top 8 spaces and things like that. Even when Twitter first started, there was a lot less vinegar and hatred and evilness throughout that platform when it first came out. People were just wanting to put things up as quickly as possible, put up their opinions and go back and forth and things like that. Still is the case now, but unfortunately, nowadays, with mainstream media already corrupting the minds and shaping minds in ways that they shouldn't be, it bleeds over into social media. And because of that, the chaos and the decentralized chaos that is social media has gotten a lot worse. And unfortunately, mainstream media has a lot to do with that, because if you've got these people that are so close-minded that they're just not paying attention and questioning things and trying to look for deeper meanings and trying to actually, really confirm what they're listening to, and they just immediately accept it. And if those opinions and those facts and things that they're being fed are of a negative variety, it'll bleed over into social media, because then all of a sudden you're basically brainwashing these people into a army of keyboard warriors that feel like if you're not on the one side that they're on based on what they're being told, then you are persona non grata, and you're going to be read the riot act, and everything you say to counteract what they're saying is a bunch of crap. And your opinions are wrong. Their opinions are the only ones that matter. And you're never gonna be able to make headway with them. And it's sad, because not only are you receiving that kind of backlash from complete strangers on social media, but in some cases even it bleeds into your family, like your extended family and things like that. You have cousins that have sparring matches over, their political beliefs or religious beliefs. And, one person hears something on mainstream media, takes it as gospel, goes to a family reunion, meets up with someone who has the opposite opinion, or someone who's actually done a little bit of digging and investigative journalism, and comes back with a totally different perspective, and you have a blowout at that point. And it's not just extended family. I mean, you can even have siblings. Like, I have a sibling, an oldest sibling of mine that I had a falling out with for many reasons, but quite a bit of it was politically based. My older sister, she has her opinions on political stuff. I have mine, but luckily we have such a strong enough bond that we are able to agree to disagree, so to speak. And that's commonality that needs to happen more on social media, but unfortunately doesn't. Because back in the day when social media and the internet first came to light, you had a lot more facts being disseminated through traditional media channels, and people were just, reaching out to each other on social media to gauge feedback and to ask what they thought about what they were hearing on those media channels. And, sometimes calls to action back then sparked actual movements. Whereas now calls to action either fall on deaf ears, or in some cases end up with a completely opposite outcome than what was anticipated or expected or wanted. And you also have seen a lot, and this is very unfortunate, especially, for us parents who have young children that haven't been completely exposed to social media yet, thankfully, and probably won't be for many years to come. You see a lot more mob mentalities and things like that on social media, where, and they call it cyberbullying is another term that's widely used. And unfortunately, it has sparked a massive spike in the amounts of people harming themselves, sometimes to a permanent end, which that should never be. It should never be something that people should wish or want upon someone else. But these people are so close-minded, and their brains have been so infected with the toxicity that they've seen and heard and viewed on mainstream media, that they don't feel like what they're saying is a bad thing, or they don't feel like wishing ill will upon someone is a negative thing, when in obvious reality it very much is. Because you should never wish ill will upon anyone, especially someone just because they don't believe the things that you believe, or they don't trust everything at face value, so you immediately wish that they were no longer on the planet. I mean, that's horrible to have that kind of a mindset. And these people just pass it off as just, I'm saying what I'm saying, and I'm sticking with my opinions. And you're free to have your opinions, but you shouldn't be wanting to wish someone was no longer on the planet. That's just because of your differentiating opinions. That's just horrible. That's horse crap. I've had my share of trolls and negative feedback on social media, not just since I've started the podcast, but just overall, because, I've always been opinionated. It's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is because of the fact that I'm opinionated, and I love speaking my mind, and I love being able to get everybody else talking as well. And unfortunately, that's going to invite negative feedback as well. You're going to get the good and you're going to get the bad. You have to be able to roll with the punches to a certain extent, but people should also know limits and what is okay to say and what's not okay to say. Just because you have a person that is very opinionated does not make them a bad person, does not make them the scum of the earth. I don't think I've ever really been called that, but in some form or fashion. To me, what's the problem with having a dialogue? What's the problem with having meaningful conversations with other people that you've never encountered before? Why can't someone who lives in Nashville, Tennessee, have a meaningful conversation with someone who lives in Bucharest or Moscow, or even, hell, if they were able to get internet where they live, or in Pyongyang, North Korea? You know what I mean? We're all human. We all breathe the same air. We all have the same blood coursing through our veins. We all are living on the exact same rock, and we're all fighting day by day just to enjoy the time we have. And we should be able to do that. We should be able to freely express ourselves without having to fear blowback or negative feedback and things like, or bullying. Like, as I said, cyberbullying, because, social media has many different aspects to it. A lot of good can be done. It gives a voice to the voiceless. It allows people who may not be the best public speakers, the best that are, that really aren't good at looking at other people out in an audience, making eye contact. It gives them the ability to freely speak their mind in a space where they don't have to look at someone eye to eye. It emboldens them to be, more outspoken and more forthcoming. Social media also gives you that innate ability to break stories that mainstream media refuses to cover because it doesn't push their narrative. And as well as I do, there are a lot of stories out there, a lot of not just human interest pieces, but political pieces, health-related pieces, technology-related pieces, many different avenues and stories and things that are out there that need to be covered. But mainstream media won't do it because it won't fit the narrative that they're trying to hardcore push and inject into the minds of those that they feel they can easily corrupt. Again, as I said, I had so much feedback from people on TikTok and things, just talking about elections and the Trump saga and things with Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and the history of voting and things like that. It sparks conversation. Yes, as I said, there were negative comments, people just saying, go F yourself, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. But you also have a lot of people who are like, yeah, I see what you're saying. And hey, I never thought of it that way. And I really appreciate this fresh perspective. And, it sparks that real conversation that, for people who may be social media or socially inept, it gives them that ability to talk and to get their opinions heard so they can feel more included in the grand scheme of things, because that's all people want, is just to feel included, to feel like their voice is being heard. And social media is a very good place for that, as long as, it's, I wouldn't really say it needs to be controlled necessarily. Like, there doesn't need to be a lot of, there obviously needs to be checks and balances. Free speech means you have the ability to speak your mind to an extent, but there still should be limitations at the same time. So it's kind of a gray area, because you should have the ability to say what you want, but at the same time, you should also be restricted from certain things, like I said, telling someone to off themselves is ridiculous, or threatening the lives of other people is, again, that's literally a crime, or can be considered a crime. And I am a big believer in citizen journalism. I am a big believer in like watching these YouTube channels of people that are covering live, like not just live like protests, but like live police calls or live, things that are happening in real time that your CNNs, your Fox Newses, your MSNBCs, ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS won't cover because it's not a big enough story to them. Or again, as I said, it doesn't fit the narrative. That also, that citizen journalism also emboldens people. It also makes people feel like, hey, I'm making a difference because I'm bringing to light things that other news media outlets and things won't cover. Which is that's a massive positive. But again, with social media, you're going to have good and you're going to have bad aspects, especially on things that are as freely accessible as they are. You're going to have tribalism. You're going to create these little subcultures and these little groups of people that all have these same central thought processes and opinions and things. And because of that, anybody who is not in that little circle, again, is persona non grata to them. They won't talk to them, or if they see any posts on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, that are contrary or anti their stance, they're going to go on and they're just going to smear the crap out of those people. They are just going to plaster hateful rhetoric all over those posts to the point where people will either take the posts down, completely take their social media presence away, or, as I said, in very extreme cases, try to take their own lives. Which, again, it's bad. It's very, very, very bad. And I wish these people could look back at themselves after the fact and be like, I unfortunately I helped a person take their own life because of the words I used. And I know some people will come back with, well, it's just words on a keyboard or words on a screen. Problem is, though, with the fragile-minded, with the people who don't have the support systems in place that other people do, those words are like knives cutting them. Those words are like gunshots ripping through their body and their mental state. And because of that, it makes people complicit to those horrible outcomes. And I think, like before Elon bought out and took over Twitter, during that period where it was kind of, I think it was like, I don't know, Facebook was really kind of running the show, but it was like there was a really dark period in there where it was right around the 2020 election cycle, actually, where people's opinions and people's thoughts and viewpoints, be it towards one side or the other, one candidacy or the other, they were being suppressed. They were being smothered. Because, again, at the time, they were under the same corrupt umbrella that mainstream media still is to this day. And it was horrible because you had a lot of people out there who had really good thoughts and opinions and ideas to help potentially, candidates make headway or make up ground if they were trailing in polls. But their opinions and their ideas and their creative geniuses were being silenced because of the social media back end people who were like, no, you can't say that, or no, this doesn't fit our narratives. You're going to be shut down now. And that's another thing, like with Facebook community standards, or fact checkers, as they were called. Facebook, thankfully, has, for the most part, ripped that down. It was a very bad idea. But at the time, Zuckerberg was unfortunately under the corrupt control of mainstream media and the higher powers that be. And he admitted that in testimony to Congress. He admitted that they did suppression on social media posts and things that their cronies found that weren't conducive or weren't benefiting the narrative that they were trying to push out at the time, and that was trying to get the right people in their mind in office, which not necessarily right for the country, but right for their interests. So Facebook in that aspect, thankfully, has ripped that down, and they've become more of a free-flowing platform again. They've kind of cycled back to an extent to where it was originally when it first was in its heyday, when it first really blew up on the scene. Twitter, on the other hand, X, whatever you want to call it, even though Elon has taken his company has bought X and kind of molded it a bit under its own vision and design, it's still Wild Wild West. It is still a free-for-all out there. You still have many people that are putting up posts and things and tweets and whatnot and being completely obliterated by hatred and other things. And they come fast and furious too. That's the thing. If you say something or you put up something that could be part of a trending hashtag, and even if you have a somewhat decent sized following, that's going to blow up fast, be it either in a good way or a bad way, depending on what you say and how you're saying it. And unfortunately, in that same vein, when you get enough hatred, you're gonna end up, you could potentially end up deciding to just tear down your entire social media footprint. And they call that cancel culture, because, oh, this person, we don't like this person because of what they're putting out. We don't feel it fits with what we want to see on here. So we're going to do as much digging as we can to find some dirt on this person and blast it all over social media so everybody can see it. And then they'll be forced to step away from social media, and we are going to win because we got them canceled. In some cases, not necessarily a bad thing, especially if that person was covering up heinous acts or doing things that were detrimental to other people or even young children. I have a social media individual in mind, but I'm not going to mention her name. But if you figure out who I'm slyly referring to, I have 2 tickets on a toxic gossip train for you. It was something where that person, people didn't like the way that person was conducting themselves online through a massive social media following. And then they did digging and they found some very unflattering and potentially criminal things that person had partook in previously, to the point where it completely crippled them financially, ripped down tours that they were partaking in, and now their posts are falling on way more deaf ears than when they were in their heyday. And that's the thing, social media, keyboard warriors, citizen journalism, whatever you want to call it, it does good, but it also does harm at the same time, because depending on what happens and what you bring to light, you can also bring out victims that may not necessarily have wanted to have their stories or their information blasted on the internet. And that's another thing too. This is where things really start to get scary from a safety standpoint, because regardless what you feel about a person or what that person portrays out in the world. They still have the right to their privacy and to be able to live their lives outside of the public eye any way they see fit. But unfortunately, and again, like I said, this is a scary part, you will have people that are so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, that are so hell-bent on making that person's life as miserable and uncomfortable as possible, they will do what is commonly referred to as doxing, which is searching public records, searching through different databases, and actually locating the physical address of that particular person's home, and then blasting that or their phone number on social media for other people to go and visit and disrupt their lives outside of the public eye when they are not on camera, not doing whatever they're doing from a celebrity standpoint. And again, that should never be something that is celebrated or cheered or recommended, because again, that is illegal. Sorry guys, my eye is just bothering me tonight. That's illegal. It is. You're not, even if it's public record, you're not allowed to disclose someone's personal information on social media, but yet people still do it anyways. Another thing that people do, again, because of the age of social media, is what's called swatting, where someone, if they're, if there's a streamer or somebody's, doing a live broadcast, a person who doesn't like them for whatever reason, their beliefs don't align with mine, or they said something bad about this celebrity that I massively am a huge fan of, blah blah blah, whatever the case is, they will actually call 911 dispatch and say that there is a crime being committed at this person's location. They will give information like someone's being held hostage, or someone's threatening someone with a bomb or something like that. That they'll actually send like officers and troops and even sometimes like SWAT over to this person's house when nothing is going on. And again, this all ties back to social media and how powerful it truly is, both in a good aspect as well as a bad one. In addition to that, not only do you have to deal with the cancel culture, the mob mentality, they're also with how fast people can put stuff up on the internet. Like I said, especially on Twitter, Reddit, things like that. You're going to have a lot of misinformation. You're going to have a lot of, fake facts. It becomes sometimes a needle in a haystack just to find legitimate truth in some aspect, in some situations, just because of the fact that people love chaos and want to see the world burn, or they want to make people, they know how easily people can be persuaded into believing something is true, so they'll start blasting stuff out there, which is all total bullshit, but other people eat it up and think it's real and will react accordingly. I think the more rope people are given on social media, the more apt they are to push their limits as much as possible. Now, that's not to say everybody does that, because not everybody has those nefariousness in their heads, and not everybody there to watch the world burn. But nowadays, again, with mainstream media, what happened to the camera there? Sorry about that, guys. With mainstream media affecting, see if I can get this camera back. With mainstream media starting to infect people's brains more and more, it makes it easier and easier for these like little troll robots to be created and then disseminated out into social media. So it's almost like a virus. it's like, hey, you know, we've created these little parasites in our lab, and now we're gonna funnel it out and let chaos reign. Because eventually, what they want to have happen is if you got enough chaos and you have enough people that can throw things into an anarchy based situation, you can eventually get to the point where you can forcibly take control, where you can start, in some cases, in physical cases, enacting like martial law and things like that. Like you have, for example, over in Britain, in the UK, you've got people getting arrested and approached by the police for their social media posts. That's how bad things are getting. Not just in the UK, where, you know, if you say the wrong thing, you're going to have a rap on your door, and there's going to be police there, basically saying you're either going to be taken down the post or you're going to be arrested for voicing your opinion on a social media platform. You could be arrested for that. And it's not like these people are telling people to kill themselves or, you know, threatening other people or things like that. It's just their opinion or their post goes against the narrative that's being pushed at that time. And if that government decides, hey, these people are spouting rhetoric that we don't feel matches up with what we're trying to push out as far as our agenda, they're going to send people to your house and they're going to remove you from your house for that. And it's horrible. But unfortunately, such is the way the world is running nowadays. Not all over the place, of course, but it's happening more and more, and way more than it should. You know, it's, I think, like, if people cared more about making their own lives better and less about ruining other people's lives and infecting as many brains as possible, the world overall would be a better place. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And, you know, we've come a long way in both good and bad from the days, like I said, of when Yahoo chats were a real thing. AOL Instant Messenger was a real thing. MySpace was a thing. MySpace was just a glorified popularity contest where you were basically trying to kiss ass to anybody to get on their top 8 spaces. You could, like, look at me, look at how cool I am. I'm part of this person's inner circle. Blah, blah. Which now, you know, you have your inner circles with celebrities and things like that. But, you know, I am a massive proprietor of mental health, and I will be covering that in a future episode. Might even be the next episode if we're progressing towards that, because I have a lot to say regarding mental health, not just from a general standpoint, but from a personally affected standpoint. And as I said, I will get into that later. But it seems like as the years and decades and things go by, mental health as a whole in humans is becoming more and more fragile. People aren't as thick-skinned as they were back in the day. Case in point, if you grew up back in the 80s like I did, or if you ever stumble upon old school episodes and clips of shows such as All in the Family, such as, oh, mercy, I'm trying to think of it, Sanford and Son, things like that. The stuff that was on the air every week, broadcast to millions of homes, not only throughout the United States, but around the world, it was commonplace. Archie Bunker said things then that if it was in 2025 and Archie Bunker was around trying to say those things, he would either be canceled or he'd be arrested. And his shows, those episodes, would never see the light of day. Because people, unfortunately, nowadays have to walk on eggshells too much. We've been forced to walk on eggshells. And that's one of the things that I liked about what JD Vance said. And is that essentially we need to get back to a time where we had thick skins, where we could take a joke and not feel like we're being attacked, or that, oh, that was an off-color remark, and we need to get back to those days, because, you know, again, Archie Bunker was a prime example, or George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, even Chris Rock. All of their stand-up specials were perfectly fine and welcomed and well received when they came out in the 80s and 90s. But now in 2025, you wouldn't see that anymore. That stuff wouldn't be allowed to be disseminated or on the air. And it's horrible, because it's you're basically crippling people's artistic liberties and freedoms, because you're too concerned and you're too worried about your little fragile mind being corrupted by a dirty joke. Ooh, heaven forbid someone tells you a dirty joke and you just can't handle it. It's ridiculous. You know, and again, this all goes back to mainstream media trying to dumb down and make the human mind as fragile as possible, not only so they can stop people from questioning things and digging into things, but so that people are more easily corruptible, so they can try to convert more people into becoming brainless, mindless sheep that will just follow the beat of the drum that they hear, and not be like, well, should I really be following this? Hey, are they actually leading me towards like a volcano cliff or something? And the camera moved again. What in the world is going on with the camera right now, guys? This is ridiculous. Okay. I don't know what in the world is going on with the camera right now. So I apologize about that. For some reason, the camera has decided to play tricks on us tonight. And if this is if the government is listening or something and they're like trying to manipulate me off camera, that's rude and how dare you. But what I was saying was that, you know, they want to make them into brainless, mindless sheep, rather than, you know, hey, I hear this drum beat, I'm just going to follow it, even if it means leading them towards the cliff of a volcano. They're still going to follow, and that's not the way the world should be. And it's not the way the world was for the longest time. And I really, really, really hope we can get back to the way things were, because I don't want my son, and I don't think any parent wants their child to be raised in an environment where they can't feel comfortable speaking their minds, or, you know, can't feel comfortable looking up information online and knowing that it's actually fact and not just a spun narrative being pushed upon them. And again, this is where conspiracy theories and things come in too, because, you know, conspiracy theories have always been around. The tale is old as time. You're always going to have people out there who have these weird, okay, we're doing it again. What in the world is going on with the camera tonight? I apologize, folks. Technical difficulties. We will get this fixed. But conspiracy theories, this is what happens. It's been around so long, and there's been so many. And for the longest time, people were always just called tinfoil hat wearers, or nut jobs, or cuckoo, whatever you want to call people like that. People like me, because I'm a conspiracy theorist. I make no bones about that. And I wouldn't really even say it's more like conspiracy theorists necessarily. It's more of a narrative challenging individual, because we're not just trying to come up with these outlandish explanations for why things happened the way they have, or why things went the way they did. We're more trying to investigate, did this truly happen the way it did just because it did? Or is there something going on behind the scenes that they don't want you to know about? Like when you see on social media, like if you see certain things happen, or there's like, hey, there was a big political happening that just happened right now. A lot of times you'll see, especially on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, you'll see people saying, hey, this just happened. What are they distracting us from? Because what they try to do is they try to make you feel like you're a puppy dog. You got, look at the shiny ball over here. Pay no attention to the flaming pile of shit over here. Shiny ball, shiny ball, shiny ball. Don't look at the shit over here. And that's what they try to do. They try to essentially stop you from seeing what's really going on by trying to distract you with something else. They don't always do that, but the more social media evolves and the more you have your investigative journalists online, civilian investigative journalists online, digging and not trusting the narrative and looking for those hidden roots underneath the base of the tree, you find these things and you see that things don't smell right. And once you start uncovering that pile, every other tree in that forest becomes suspect. You start wanting to know, okay, if they lie to us about this, what else have they lied to us about? What else will they continue to lie to us about? And that's the thing. That's why over the last, especially the last few years, some conspiracy theory that they've called conspiracy theories have been proven right. And again, I got backlash on this, which is fine, from people online after the first episode released about the Wuhan lab created COVID virus. It's been proven that it was created in a lab in Wuhan and it was disseminated, and that's how it spread throughout the world. It's been proven that the Russia hoax, disinformation scenario from 2016 was complete bullshit, and there wasn't a deep plot by the Ruskies to meddle in the election. Yeah, they have skin in the game, so they were interested, but they didn't play a massive role in the outcome being what it was. And again, like I said, I got backlash for that from some people, and that's fine. I expect that, and I want that. I want people to, good Lord, we're doing it again. I want people to come back to me with feedback and say, hey, I don't feel what you're saying is right, and here's why, and X, Y, Z. Give me your thoughts, give me your facts, give me your opinions, because I want to come back and go back and forth with you on this. Not in a negative way, just in a conversational way. And I feel like if social media didn't evolve the way it has, I wouldn't be sitting here doing what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't have the ability to come to you guys every week and talk to you guys about my thoughts and my opinions on the world as a whole and get your opinions and your feedback and things like that. So I feel like social media has done a really good job. Again, it has its good sides and its bad sides. Why are we doing this? Why does this camera keep moving? I am going to figure out what is going on with this, and I will get this resolved before the next episode, I swear to God. But, it's something where I look at the whole social media platform and not just part of it, and I go, okay, it's getting better, but it still needs a massive overhaul, because we're in a position where things aren't exactly where they need to be, or where it should be to benefit everyone involved. And I think, honestly, that there are a lot of people out there who just want their voices to be heard, or even though they come back with all of this negative energy and things towards people, they're not knocking people just to knock them. There is an underlying reason. And again, you can't look at things always on face value alone. You can't look at someone and be like, well, they're just a troll because they want to troll. No, sometimes there is deeper meaning. Like they're struggling themselves, and they feel like their only way they can get their voice heard is by spewing out this negativity, because it sparks reactions from people, and people thrive. Some people thrive on those reactions or crave them because they didn't get enough reactions and things when they were growing up, or present day. They don't feel like I feel like I don't matter, so I need to scream as loud as I can and get as many people talking or responding as I can, even if what I'm screaming is just hateful rhetoric. I'm getting people to talk to me, and that's what I crave. Not a good mindset. That ties into mental health, which I want to dive into probably, like I said, on the next episode, because I feel it's a good segue from what we've been talking about on this episode. But yeah, I mean, I want to know, what do you guys think? What is your opinion and your what do you feel social media is doing well? What do you feel social media is lacking? If you were in charge, let's say you became Elon or his company and you owned X, or you were Zuckerberg and you owned Facebook, what would you change? What would you make different? What would you make as far as changes to make this more of a better place for everyone involved? How would you guys make those sweeping changes? Would you put more restrictions on things? Would you open up an entirely new social media platform altogether, where it was just nothing but independent, straight on facts with no rhetoric, no spin, no bullshit? What would you do? I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. Again, social medias are as at NFF Pod. That is November Foxtrot Papa Oscar Delta. NFF POD stands for No Filter Friday Podcast. So reach out to me on those social media platforms. Again, you guys have done an amazing job on TikTok, especially. I got a crap ton of views on there. You've done really good on YouTube as well. My shorts and reels and things have gotten a lot of views. Not as many comments as on that I've gotten on TikTok, but still appreciate all of the viewing and all of the watching you guys have been doing. Again, Facebook, X, Twitter, I'm on there too. We have all normal social media feeds as well as all podcast feeds. So you'll be able to listen to me every week spouting this kind of stuff and engaging you guys in rhetoric and conversation on iHeart, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, everything. So again, I want to get your guys' feedback. You know, if you were driving social media, how would you make changes? Would you make changes? Do you feel that social media is fine the way it is right now? I want to know what your opinions are on that, because you know this helps me continue the narrative and it gets our conversations moving at a faster rate. And again, eventually at some point I do want to bring on guests, and maybe at some point we'll even do a live podcast. That would be insanely weird, but I might feel ballsy enough at some point to try to do one live on maybe like a TikTok or something like that, because that's where I'm getting a lot of the traffic from you guys. But for now, I want to wrap this up. Thank you guys again so much for listening, or tuning in if you're watching on YouTube. I really hope you guys enjoy what I've been talking about here this last just under an hour about social media and how it absolutely drives narratives and feeds off of not just mainstream media's content, but it generates its own atmosphere as well. I hope that people can find common ground as much as possible wherever they're able to, because we need that. We need to be able to feel comfortable in our own space, regardless of what platform we might be on, or regardless of where we are in the world. Because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to converse. You're not going to step out of your comfort zone. You're not going to engage in conversations, and you're not going to be able to brainstorm. You might not be able to have that breakthrough you've always wanted because you're afraid to go on social media and put yourself out there. You should never be afraid to do that. But next week, like I said, probably be going down the mental health route. We shall see how this progresses. Again, I want to thank you guys so very much for all of your support and all of your follows and all of your subscriptions and all of your feedback throughout the social media channels. Again, I can be found at NFFPOD on all social media channels. And we will be back here next Friday for another episode of No Filter Friday, which of course is always unfiltered, unapologetic, unbothered, and unscripted. But for now, as always, ladies and gentlemen, take my advice, pull down your pants, slide on the ice. Have a great week, stay safe, love each other out there, and we will see you next time. Adios.